It's a pleasure now to get things started, to call on a representative of one of our longer, fabulous sponsors, and we have so many of them. Please give a warm BCNRF welcome to Mr. Curtis Kitchen, lead BC Government Relations, Tourmaline.
Thanks for stirring up the crowd, Kevin. That's what I need. So good morning and welcome to the BC Resource Ministers Breakfast here in Prince George on the unceded ancestral lands of the Clay Tenay. My name is Curtis Kitchen from Tourmaline, the largest natural gas producer in Canada. The largest natural gas producer in Canada and major economic contributor to BC. In 2023, Tourmaline directly contributed $350 million in royalties and taxes to the province. And in 2024, we cemented our position as the largest royalty payer by deploying $3 billion of capital to maintain and grow our business here. We did this while building on our established relationships with the region's Indigenous communities and bringing our world-leading approach to development planning, reclamation, and emission reduction. It goes without saying that 2025 will bring new opportunities and new challenges, the least of which are tariff threats from our neighbor to the south. And in the face of these threats, expanding access to global markets, especially through LNG, is going to be our best insulation. But we're lucky because this morning we're joined by the group of ministers who are collectively key to unlocking and maximizing value from BC's natural resources. And along with the Honourable Minister Dix, who has already shown leadership as he applies his experience and analytical drive to the challenges in our sector, I also want to thank the Honourable Ministers Randene, Neill, Diana Gibson, Tamara Davidson, Christine Boyle, and Jagrup Brar for joining us here for this critical discussion on how natural resources can improve the quality of life and standard of living for all those that reside in British Columbia. And with that, I'll turn it over to our moderator this morning, Colleen Giroux-Schmidt with Interjects. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I find Kevin's jokes in the morning are as much a wake-up as the cup of coffee. So hopefully everyone is awake and attentive. And that joke was even worse than Kevin's, so there we go. We will stop with it and get on to the content. So I'm going to speak very briefly here and then allow the ministers to introduce themselves. We have a tight timeline for introductions, and then we're going to move into the questions, and we will try to have as much conversation this morning as we can in the time. We're sitting here this morning in a world in 2025 that's facing unprecedented challenges and complexity. It's interconnected challenges, whether it's the climate crisis, the economic crisis, the relationships among partners in North America crisis, among others. And it makes the jobs and the chairs that you all sit in that much more complicated, but the opportunities for solutions and creative paths forward that much greater. And so in that spirit, I will start with the Honourable Adrian Dix, the Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, and then we'll move to your left for brief introductions, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Okay. So 90 seconds, eh?
90 seconds.
That's never happened. I'm Adrian Dix. For 7 years, 4 months and 1 day, I was Minister of Health. For the last...
Yes.
For the last 59 days, I've been Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, so yes, I will know everything in response to your questions. What I know is that these are urgent times. Urgent times because of the discussion of tariffs, but that's just this week. Urgent times because Los Angeles is on fire, and no one who lives in Fort Nelson or Williams Lake or Lytton will do anything but understand the impact of that. Urgent because we have urgent choices to make as a province and as a community. And that's the approach that all of us are going to take to these issues in the next little while. That means urgency. That means when we announce the largest renewable project call in the history of BC Hydro, that we move to ensure that those projects are not just announced but built, and we make changes in regulation to see that happen. When we announce the North Coast transmission line, we make changes in regulation to ensure it's built because the mining industry needs it, and coastal communities need it, and the Northwest needs it, and British Columbia needs it. It means that this is not the time for provinces to dispute with one another, but to act together. Urgency means going to Alberta and working with the Alberta Energy Minister to see if we can come together on common cause and common policy. Urgency means that we take advantages of the incredible opportunities to make BC a clean energy superpower and to build on the work that's done by the people in this room, but also the working people out there who do that work to make that happen. That's what I'm going to try and do as Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions.
Thank you. The Honourable Tamara Davidson, Minister of Environment and Parks.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My Haida name is Lannis. My English name is Tamara Davidson. I'm the Minister of Environment and Parks, as well as the MLA for North Coast Haida Gwaii. I had to make sure that I got a photo this morning with the two mayors in the north because we're here representing a very vast rural area, and we have a lot of large projects that are moving forward. I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting today here on the Clay-Clay-Tenay lands, and I thank the elders and the singers and drummers. Curtis was going to give a joke this morning that him and I were both too shy the other day to dance when the drummers and singers invited us up, so I guess he owes me a dance. I'd like to thank Minister Dix and Minister Brar. You know, we have a couple newbies here in Cabinet, and we also are really excited about collaborating and really looking forward to moving our projects forward. Environmental protection is still one of the key factors in a lot of the large projects that are moving forward. And we believe that those can go hand in hand with building our economy and building strong jobs for families. We're really looking forward to working with you on the projects. We've had a great week this week, and one of the top key things that we've learned is that we are here to work with you, but also that we've heard a lot about our public service and the employees that work within our government and the hard work that they're doing to try to move these projects forward as well. So I'm looking forward to this morning, and I'm looking forward to meeting you if I haven't already. Thank you.
And the Honourable Christine Boyle, Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation.
Thank you so much, and like my colleagues here, incredibly honored to be joining you all and to be joining you at this time in history as the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. It is a hugely important role, and I'm so glad to be working with so many folks on this stage and in this room. As Minister Davidson said, a few of us are new, so I thought I would just say a couple things about my past work. I was born and raised on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. Much of my early career was in community and frontline social service, so I worked at an elementary school in East Vancouver that was predominantly Indigenous students and families. I spent many years working in Vancouver's downtown east side at a low barrier shelter, and I was elected to the Vancouver City Council in 2018. So spent 6 years in local government and love to see so many local government folks here. I led our city's climate action and affordable housing work, but also got to co-chair the work to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People at the local level, at an intergovernmental table with Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and be part of Metro Vancouver's Indigenous Relations Committee. I'm really looking forward to pulling lessons from that work in this much larger scope, working with all of you across the province and continuing to listen and learn as we do that work together. My reputation has been one of building bridges and bringing people together to find solutions that help us move forward together. And that is the work we have in in forming partnerships and finding agreements across the province and in partnership with First Nations to continue to build a strong economy across British Columbia. Really grateful to get to do that work with you.
And the Honourable Diana Gibson, Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation.
Thank you so much. It's really my privilege to be here. I've met with many of you, not enough yet. I really look forward to meeting with many more to talk about how we work together to unlock economic development and protect our economic security here in BC. As Minister, my portfolio is amazing. It is really the best, I can't say that, but look at my colleagues here, but really the best ministry. Jobs, it really is a priority for me, quality jobs. I split my youth between a rural community in Alberta, farming community, and a rural mill town in BC. So I know really acutely and personally the importance of sustaining jobs in rural communities, breadwinner jobs where families can put food on the table, buy winter coats for their kids, and hockey gear. I've got kids that grow fast and I have to buy hockey gear for them. I know what we need in those rural communities. It's family sustaining jobs. And I'm really here to be a partner with you and look forward to doing that together, working to unlock economic development, whether that's red tape reduction, whether that's working on other delays. I'm also a former business owner, and so I'm very aware of supply chain challenges and the importance of us talking about our supply chains around labor costs and challenges with quality labor jobs in our communities, and working with all of you to ensure that we're at the table together on economic development. Our ministry has been just yesterday announced the Manufacturing Jobs Fund, not just investing in de-risking businesses and helping to address some of those economic challenges, but also leveraging funds. Over $900 million in that fund alone was leveraged from other governments and private sector investors. That's the work I want to do with you so that we can build economic development across all of BC and defend our economy as we face these challenges. Thank you.
Right. And the Honourable Jagrup Brar, Minister of Mining and Critical Minerals.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jagrup Brar. I'm the Minister of Mining and Critical Minerals. It's wonderful to be here today on the traditional territory of the Claytley Tene First Nation. And I'm really honored to be part of this beautiful natural resources forum. And I would like to take this opportunity to provide you some highlights about our progress we have made in the mining sector. Since 2017, the total employment in the mining sector has gone up by 10%, and the private sector investment in the mineral development has gone up almost more than double. And our export of the minerals has gone up by 41%. That is from $12 billion to roughly about $17 billion during the last 7 years. And you have a standalone mining and critical minerals ministries, my friend, after long, long years in BC, and that's happening. And there are 70 plus critical minerals event projects at this point in time identified by the BC Mining Association that could help BC realize our critical minerals potential moving forward. So I just want to say to you, that's our progress so far, and we're not going to stop there. We are fully committed to develop a responsible and competitive mining sector moving forward to create, grow the economy, to create good jobs for the people of British Columbia, and move forward in a real way the reconciliation with the First Nations and sustain our environment. And in my past life, I come from India. The English language was not part of my grade 10 school system. And I played basketball for the country. And here I also accepted what we call the welfare challenge, because I wanted to tell the story of the people living in poverty from their perspective. So I did that in 2012. I stayed on welfare for 1 month. I lost about 26 pounds. and I'm here to work with people to develop an economy that works for everyone. So thank you very much.
All right, and last but certainly not least, the Honourable Randene Neill, Minister of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say I'm so honored to be here on the territory of the Tene Nation. And forthwith, as per your suggestion, we are changing the name of Walrus to the awesome Water, Land and Resource Stewardship. So I come first instead of last all the time. It is such an honor to be here. We had a full day of meetings yesterday. We got here Sunday night, and we met with a ton of people. And as a former journalist, I will be brief and stick to my 90 seconds. But meeting all of you is literally why I ran and wanted to be in this position. Your voices, bringing all of us to the table, is what is going to move us forward into solutions. We need a new way of working together and listening to people's voices and having everybody's voices heard and having everyone truly feeling like they have a say in the conversation. And that's how we're gonna move British Columbia forward, and that's how we're gonna make the tough decisions. When we have people in the room with wildly varying opinions, the solutions we come to are going to be stronger. I truly, truly believe that. And I know my ministry, the last word is stewardship. And working together to protect the environment and create an economy that benefits all of us, that's abundant, that helps us protect the environment. That's not a false choice. We can and we will do both of those together. And speaking with you, a lot of you yesterday, and I know I have a lot more people to speak to, I think we all get that. I think that we all get that. And we're forging a new path together in so many ways, but I really believe this incredible province and the incredible people who work together, we can do that. I grew up in Vernon on a farm, so my job was to haul the irrigation systems around and to throw the hay into the back of the truck and to help prune the apples and pick the apples in the fall. Working hard, working together at a community level is really what brings us together. So I'm so proud to be here with all of my colleagues, and they're a lot of female colleagues as well, which is really kick-ass. And I'm so proud to be meeting you with all of you today. So thank you so much.
All right, so Minister Dix, we're going to start with you.
Oh boy, how did this work out? I got a bad draw.
It's because you have an urgency with what you need to speak with. So a lot's happened recently in our external ecosystem outside of British Columbia and within BC, signaling a bit of a potential reset on BC's climate policy. Can you share your vision for Clean BC and BC's climate ambitions and what the resource sector can expect moving forward?
Well, I think for starters, what you can expect is action. I think that there is a tendency in our world to replace yes or no, and decisions can always be made yes or no with interminable delay. And I think we have to act, as I said when I started, with urgency on these questions, all of these questions. There will be a review of Clean BC policies. Why? Because this was a program launched 5 years ago, and it requires review. Not everything works all the time, and as it should, to meet the targets that we need to achieve. But what I also want to say is we got to do a better job of selling what we're doing in British Columbia, of showing that we're leading the world. When you say you have the lowest emission LNG in the world, you need to take advantage of that to sell that around the world. There is an audience for that. Equally, we have to act together. Every oil and gas company, every company in the world has obligations to meet climate targets by 2050, and we got to work with each other to do it. And that means everybody. Advocates, yes. Governments, yes. Business, yes. Communities, yes. And finally, I want to say this. I think the climate debate has been bogged down in a discussion of the carbon tax for too long. I mean, this morning, one of the candidates to be Prime Minister of Canada said they were going to get rid of the consumer-facing carbon tax in Canada. They said that. And so we got to move past that and act together, the people in this room and many other people, to both achieve climate goals, but also critically to ensure that working people and the people of this province benefit from that. And that is a challenge. We have got to become, if I dare say, more populist about climate policy and make it something that we all feel part of and act a part of. So yes, there will be a review of Clean BC. That's been announced, and that is obliged by legislation, and that's required. But that is not going to stop us from acting as we did on wind power, as we're doing on the North Coast transmission line, as we're doing with our friends in Alberta, to take action together to achieve our goals. We have an obligation to our children and grandchildren to do it, and we have an obligation to everyone who lives in BC now to do it.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Davidson, there's a lot of conversation about streamlining and improving permitting processes and environmental assessment, and with that comes a concern from some that that means we're going to not protect the valued ecosystem components that we hold dear in British Columbia and the other suite of issues that normally get assessed. So can you speak to how your ministry's balancing the need to move things forward faster with still having the same level of protections?
You know, that's a really great question. You know, we're really working collaboratively to look at process efficiencies. We're looking at what the process means. And, you know, our natural environment in BC, it's got such great features, and it's one of the key gemstones in our province. But when we're looking at efficiencies, we also have to look at what type of projects are we looking at and what are going to be the factors that are going to mean delays, and what are the factors that are going to mean not having any undue delays. When you're looking at a large project, you have to look at things, especially when you're doing permitting, to look at things like water systems. If you have those in place, then we're really working collaboratively with mines, with energy. We want to look at how we can collaborate and move things through the process quicker. And we're really looking at where we can do that together, and we're really looking at how we can still maintain environmental protection and making sure that those concerns and those are not being placed undue hardship on other areas. So we're really looking to work with our First Nation partners, with local government, municipalities, regional districts, and working with the companies themselves.
Great, thank you, Minister. So Minister Boyle, BC is blessed to be leading the country in how we put UNDRIP into action, with DRIPA and the Declaration Act being operationalized, if you will, but it's not without challenge, and that challenge creates some uncertainty. So what can you share today with business and investors on what your government's doing to provide greater certainty on the path forward so that we can continue to build these great partnered projects that will drive BC's economy?
Thanks. It's a very real and important question, and like my colleagues, I've had great meetings through this week and before, and many to come, navigating this path together. The reality is that the path to economic development in British Columbia is in partnership with First Nations. That's how we build a strong British Columbia that benefits all of us. So we are working on partnerships and agreements that bring economic benefits, that create shared decision-making opportunities, and that recognize First Nations' right to self-determination. And those partnerships and agreements also bring predictability and stability and certainty to the work that we are all doing. We also know that that a barrier to First Nations' true investment and involvement and ownership in many of these large and small projects is access to equity. And so Budget 2024 included new provincial tools for First Nations equity financing to alleviate some of those barriers and ensure that nations can participate and be owners in, like I said, projects large and small. The province has been working with First Nations organizations and the business sector and many others, including the First Nations Leadership Council, to develop that program. There'll be more coming out soon from the Finance Ministry on it. And I will just point to, because Minister Dix has not yet on this panel, the success of the call for power. 8 of the 10 successful projects had 51% First Nations equity ownership. That's up to $3 billion of assets owned by First Nations in these new renewable energy projects across the country, and lots more work ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Minister. So, Minister Gibson, we're on the eve of a new administration in our largest trading partner, and the promised additional 25% tariff on everything could present significant challenges for BC's economy. How is BC preparing to support the industries that may be impacted and to help diversify our economic partnerships?
Thank you. As when I said earlier that I have the best ministry, I did mention that my ministry includes trade. And so right after being elected, of course, we had that random late night tweet from Trump about 25% tariffs. And it's been really the biggest focus of my ministry since then in the 3-part strategy. First, to fight those tariffs with every leverage we have to defend BC's economic interests. So I hope my answer to this question would be, we fought the tariffs and succeeded, and we don't have to talk about how we're going to pivot. But we also have to be ready to pivot. And I've been meeting with many of you already, and I'm keen to meet with as many of you as I can to talk about how we support each other to do that together. And so that's twofold. One is with trade diversification. And we actually have got an increase in trade offices. We opened 3 new ones in the last year in Mexico, Vietnam, and others. We have 43 trade and investment representatives across the globe working to build our investment and trade interests. And we'll continue to do that actively. And here in BC, we're building those relationships through programs like our Export Navigator program. We're super happy to work with businesses that want to look at how they can pivot to other markets and build more diversification. We have succeeded in doing that to some extent because we're the least reliant on the U.S. of all the provinces, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a lot to do to work together to defend our economic interests. So the first one was fight it. The second is trade diversification, which we're actively working on across the globe every day. And then the third is that elevate our local economy and help industries pivot. And with every challenge comes an opportunity. And so it's to work with every one of you in this room to bring creative energy to where are the opportunities with this crisis, where we can bring business to BC. As I said, our programs have been leveraging BC investment from outside with our BC dollars. And we have an opportunity to do more of that. So I'm really keen to work with you to find those opportunities where we can help you move up the supply chain and bring more value added to the province and bring more manufacturing. And the fact that our manufacturing jobs grew last month, despite the trade challenges and the threat, tells me that we're on the right path. There's a lot more to do, and I'm really keen to do it in partnership with all of you.
Minister Brar, I had the privilege to grow up in BC's mining family and to start my career in the industry. So I know the unique opportunity we have in this province to capitalize on our world-class resources and the talent here in the province to supply critical minerals to the global market. How is the government positioning BC to seize this moment and provide certainty regarding some of the coming changes to the Tenure Act?
Thank you for the question. My ministry is the best because we have critical minerals. Yeah. It's not. Yeah, it is the critical minerals that we need to build a strong economy, to build low carbon economy, to move forward the reconciliation and also sustain the environment. We have all in one package, and that's what we are dealing with when we talk about the critical minerals. Critical minerals in BC are the pillar, in my view, to make BC mining sector a global leader. And we are well positioned in the province of British Columbia to take advantage of the growing needs of the critical minerals globally and also locally, because we have a number of projects here moving forward at various stages, from the exploration to construction to operations. We have a number of projects that can move forward. And we are the largest copper producer in the country. And we are the only producer of what we call the molybdenum, moly, in the country. And in addition to that, we have two smelters in Kitimat and Trail. They produce critical minerals such as aluminum, zinc, and uranium, and also indium. We have that one. And also we have, in the BC list, we have about 16 critical minerals out of almost 30 minerals listed on the Canadian critical mineral list. So we have the highest number of critical minerals here. And I'm very proud that our exploration companies are doing a number of projects in this province at various stages, more than what we need. And that could be mined tomorrow for the critical minerals to create good jobs for the people of British Columbia and to advance reconciliation, to sustain the environment moving forward. So I just want to say that we have a BC-made critical minerals strategy, and we have opened the critical minerals office to support and to assist the projects we have in the province of British Columbia to move forward smoothly, move forward quickly. They can help them get access to the permitting process as quickly as possible. So we are on the roll with this one, so thank you very much. I need to, of course, have support from all of you to move forward.
All right, Minister Neill, we've inherited a complex and siloed governance structure that was built largely in the 19th century. And it was really well suited to solving the problems we faced in the 19th century. But we're in the 21st, and we have much bigger challenges, and they're cross-cutting. Can you speak to the collaboration that you intend to take with your colleagues and within the government to be able to move through some of those silos to enable projects to be able to move faster, and so that we can get these solutions and the economy going?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Colleen. I remember when the Premier called me and asked me to become the Minister of Waterland and Resource Stewardship, and he basically said, permitting and water. It's a huge deal, right? Water is what powers our province in BC, and permitting is what we do to get projects done. So as you mentioned, working together, getting rid of the silos, creating cross-ministry task forces that bring us to building projects earlier is key for my ministry. It's been hammered to me since day one, and we take it incredibly serious, and we're working our butts off to make sure that we get that done. For example, talking about cross-ministry partnerships, we've created a task force for housing. We brought all the provincial permits under one task force, and we achieved a 99% reduction of the backlog for provincial permits for housing. So now we've seen the average number of provincial housing applications go from 257 days to 108 days to approval. So that's one example. We've reduced the permitting for mining by 37%, which is huge, and that's just the beginning. So we're going to keep working on this. I know it's incredibly important to all of you, and in some of our meetings yesterday, we talked about permitting. In the fall of 2023, that's exactly why Walrus was created, right? To be able to work on permitting, reducing the inefficiencies, making it more efficient, and getting the application from the beginning to the end done a lot quicker. One of the main things under that too was water management. And I've talked to a lot of you this morning, and we were just talking to Diana this morning too from Rio Tinto. we're serious about moving forward on that. We're serious about bringing everyone to the table on forwarding water. We know how important it is. As I said, it powers our economy, whether it's industry, whether it's farming, whether it's drinking water, whether it's community. We know so many areas are in drought right now, and we need to work on solutions to make sure that we are not in the same situation 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 100 years from now. So we are taking it incredibly seriously, and we are working hard, and we are going to do it together. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to turn to the questions from the audience now, and I'm going to save the one that's got the most votes because it's a beautiful final question. So we'll make sure we carve out some time for that. Building on what you just shared, Minister Neill, the next question comes to yourself and Minister Davidson on the degree of collaboration between your two respective ministries to help move through the permitting and EA process faster. This is something that was raised by municipal leaders yesterday. It's felt by industry and by nations. So if you can speak a little bit to the path forward on how that collaboration will work.
Do you want to go first? Sure.
This is a great question. I've been able to connect with a lot of the local government, mayors, regional districts over the last couple of days, but more importantly, as the MLA for North Coast, Haida Gwaii, it's a really strong relationship. I worked in government for many years, and I would say that 80% of the work that we do is all about relationships, and then 20% is the really annoying paperwork that we have to fill out on triplicate. I would say that this, the one window approach, looking at the environmental assessments, we have to ensure though when we're doing any kind of a large scale project, we really need to properly assess what is going to be the impact in the future. When we look, for example, at the significant water quality impacts that might have over decades, we don't want to burden the local First Nations, the local government, municipalities with the cleanup for that once those projects are gone. So we really need to make sure that while we're working on streamlining things, we're also protecting the environment. That's what British Columbians expect from us. Also, this year, we're going to be looking, this is the 5th year of the Environmental Assessment Act. We're going to be doing a review of that with everyone. We're going to be looking at getting feedback from local governments. We're going to be looking at what is our process and how do we streamline that. But we're going to be doing the largest engagement to try to reach people to understand where are the delays and how can we work across government, how can we streamline things with still maintaining the environmental protection that's expected of us as a province. Thank you.
And I'll just pick up on that. There's two ways, and it's frustrating because even when I was knocking on doors during the election, a lot of local governments say, we're dealing with a lot of issues that are provincial issues that feels like they've been really downloaded onto local governments, like water, for example. It's a massive issue, and it's our job to really help these communities succeed. I know when in our discussions with the Greens community, watersheds is a big part of our commitment to them. So working at a community level to protect our watersheds and find ways to steward it so it lasts for the next 7 generations. The other question is, again, about permitting. How, does everything that need a permit require a permit? For example, we are getting rid of construction crews when they bring in the trucks to water down the roads because they get all dusty. You need a permit for that. Do you need a permit for that? I don't think you do. So we can get rid of some of those things that have been overlooked over the years just to make local governments' lives a little bit easier, and when you work with business and you work with industry, a little bit easier. Also, as Tamara said, cross-ministry discussions, and then also other things like transferring a lot of permitting to Ministry of Transportation and Transit. It used to sit under Walrus. Now we're moving it on to Transportation and Transit because they're already building our roads. They're already building our infrastructure. So they're able to look at the permitting in a much faster and more efficient way. So these are things that we're moving forward. And again, continuing the conversation with local governments, hearing from you to whether these things are working or not and which direction we can move into. You holding us to account is your job, and us listening is our job.
All right. We've got a question that's just been rocketing up in popularity. Oh, Minister Brar, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, can I briefly talk about the permitting processes well in mining?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, so exciting news. I'm going to start drive-through permitting process pretty soon. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I just want to say that the permitting process is, of course, a serious issue. I met a lot of stakeholders from across the sector, from First Nations, company, and all other stakeholders. So this is the issue that comes up in discussion on quite a regular basis. So I just want to say to you that my ministry has a dedicated staff. We added more resources in 2023, and we made them permanent in 2024 to focus on the permitting process. And the outcome so far is that we have cut down on the permitting wait time when it comes to the exploration permitting process quite a bit. And we have reduced the what we call the regional permitting backlog by 52% during the last 2 years. And we have reduced the major mine permitting timeline by 35%, from 259 days to 164 days. We have done that. So the prime example is the last mine that went through the system is the Caribou Gold Mine. It took roughly about 13 months to go through my ministry. And altogether, if we look at the EA and my ministry, it took about 5 years to go through the permitting process to get the permit once the application was complete. Similarly, the Blackwater mine went through the process, and it took almost about a year in my ministry. That's not enough. We need to do more, and of course, we need to work with all of you. But one thing which I've seen during the discussion with all stakeholders when it comes to mining, there's a trust relationship between the companies and, of course, the First Nations. The sooner you establish the trust, the better it is. That's what I found from various successful projects. And we have a department. We will be happy to work with you. And I'm fully committed to bring more efficiencies to make it more workable to the industry. So thank you very much.
All right, so the next question, it's maybe to Minister Davidson again, but Minister Dix may want to chime in too. But with the recent acknowledgement or commitment to remove wind energy projects from requiring a formal environmental assessment by the EAO, there is still a robust environmental assessment that happens by Minister Neill's ministry for the project, so they are still looked at. But is government contemplating doing something similar for other projects that are important to get moving faster in the province, or what other efficiencies are you looking to build?
Great, thank you. Geez, you guys are really putting me in the hot seat today. I'm like, oh, okay, wow, that's just growing a lot. As we've talked about a lot this morning, our ministries, our agencies, we're really working across each of our areas so that we can collaborate on what are we going to do to streamline things. And these projects that came through the call for power, they were strong proposals, and as Minister Boyle mentioned, they had a very strong First Nations involvement and input into the proposals. And that's what we're really looking for, is we're looking for those strong proposals. Our biggest priority, of course, is generating power and a clean and sustainable future for British Columbians. And we're going to be looking at wind power first, because that was what we were looking at as a really great opportunity. And looking at that as we look through to look at the permitting process still, that will have to happen. It's going to be very rigorous, and we're going to be looking at that, as well as looking at other areas that we might be able to do that. So these projects, they're jointly owned by First Nations, and it's still going to go through the permitting process, but it's also looking at what is good for the environment and what's going to support the energy need that is here in our province.
Great. Okay. I'm going to flip now to Minister Gibson. And just if you can speak a little bit about what government's going to do to help foster private sector job growth in the province.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you say that.
Oh, no worries. So the question is, what is government going to do to help support private sector job growth in the province?
For private sector. really focusing on leveraging private sector investment and unlocking. One of the things we've seen is delays aren't just about red tape and permitting, but there's a lot of economic challenges that are part of delay processes. And really, my ministry is about working with you to identify how do we address some of those economic challenges, whether that's things with helping to de-risk some of that investment, which we've been doing through our major investment fund, whether that's helping with export markets, with navigating with some of our small business navigator programs. Also, I've been talking to mayors about industrial land access and some of the infrastructure challenges. So there's so many of those pieces that are part of unlocking our economic development. They're going to be key to job creation. And for me, that's going to be the test for us in a year's time when I'm back here. I hope we'll have had some really good conversations about how can we work with you and industry partners, municipal partners, Indigenous partners, to ensure that we're addressing a whole bunch of those pieces, all of them together in a conversation, and then that we're building that resilient economy and we can be resilient to some of these trade challenges too.
Great. Does anyone else want to comment on? Yeah.
I just wanted to say, one of the biggest things is when we have graduates coming out of universities and trying to transition from the academic world into the business world, I think it's a really great opportunity to build a strong internship program through the companies that you have. I know that for students, it's a hard transition for some of them, and they really are lost in this sea of companies and job opportunities. What's going to be the right decision for me to take that next step? So I would really encourage all of the companies to have an internship program where you're onboarding them, getting them set up for success, and then really helping them to transition from academic life into the business world. I think that you're going to be building our future business leaders. And last night I had an opportunity to go to the student event with UMBC students, and they were so enthusiastic about what their future is going to hold, and they really had a great time talking with a lot of the companies that were there. So I'd encourage each of the companies to also look at that.
All right. I'm going to sneak one more in, and then we're going to come to our sort of closing remarks, final question. But Minister Dix, you're in the hot seat now. Okay. How are you going to deal with the impact of the potential tariffs on northeastern BC's oil and gas sector?
During the COVID-19 pandemic, and people have heard me speak about this before, at the beginning of the pandemic, PPE that we had ordered and paid for, that kept healthcare workers and patients and others safe, was stopped at the border. There was a moment when in British Columbia's acute care system, we had 7 days of PPE. 7 days of PPE. And what that tells us is that in these times, we got to focus on what's important. Now, I'm not comparing the current situation with a worldwide pandemic, but I am saying it is of an order of importance for every person in BC, in our society, in our economy, in people's lives. The importance is consequential and immense, and it requires us to focus on what's important. I think as a great country, we need to respond as one to this threat. And responding as one means that every industry counts and everybody counts. 22% of our exports to the United States are natural gas. And that industry should feel, because it does, that it has a voice as we advocate for that industry and for our country in these discussions. We need to be together on this as a country. And people in other parts of the country need to be as supportive of our industry as we are. Of course, we'll be supporting that industry if, as expected, these tariffs come into place after January 20th. Of course we will. But we've also, as in the case of PPE, if you've learned that lesson, if you've called around to try and find PPE for people who are at risk, then you don't act as if nothing's changed. The American market will always be important to us, but we clearly need other markets. And we need to expand our access to other markets, and we are doing just that. Fortunately, action has been taken to see that happen, and we have to continue that. We can't pretend that nothing happened, even if we get by the immediate crisis, right? So that requires us as well, as a country, to come together around basic principles. It's why we're working with Alberta to come together on shared matters, because two systems may be too many for a time when our industries are under threat. Right? So where we can come together, we should come together, whether it be on the oil and gas industry, whether it be on climate change issues. We should work together as a country. We cannot afford to do otherwise. We cannot afford to have 10 voices or 12 voices. We need one voice. And finally, we need to learn the lessons, I think, that we need to build up our own domestic capacity. It does not make sense when you're dealing with the vagaries of American politics. And let's not be critical of the United States. I've lived next to the United States all my life, and I think it is a great country as well. But it has an unusual political system. It does, right? President Trump won by 1%. Well, the NDP won by 2% in BC. He seems to have more confidence than we do. Right? But we cannot, if the United States can deny access to Canada of essential medical supplies in a pandemic, then we have to ensure domestically we have capacity. It doesn't make sense to allow the United States and its policies in another area, and this isn't the Trump administration, but the Biden administration, to destroy a part of our renewable fuels industry through their policies, because their policies could change. Right? And so asking the Biden administration's policy to subsidize fuel prices in BC and deny access and the long-term future of our own industry doesn't make sense either. I'm talking about Tidewater, but I'm talking about other things, right? So we got to act now. We got to protect our industry now. We got to act as one as a country now. We got to respond to this threat like every great country should respond to such a threat, together and with dynamism and strength. But we got to learn the lessons of this and make changes in the future that makes us less vulnerable to this kind of activity in other jurisdictions.
So we're going to go the opposite order now. So Minister Neill, I'll give you a couple seconds to collect your thoughts here as I weave us into the question.
Okay.
So we're going to close the session now. There was a great question that was provided by the audience on, we are here in 2026. That is next year. Yes? Yeah. What is the one thing that you have done in 2025 that you are really proud of in talking about the great success at this breakfast this time next year? And any other closing bits you want to weave into it in about 90 seconds, please.
Thank you. I'm glad you're starting with the awesome Water, Land, and Resource Stewardship Ministry this time.
Implementing changes as we go here.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? There's 4 newbies on the stage today. We're new MLAs and we're new ministers. And I think we all have a long list of things that we want to accomplish. I want us to be here next year, and I want every single one of you to come up and say, you know what? The changes that your ministry has made to permitting has made a huge difference to the success of my business and my bottom line. And I want you to say, I am so glad with all the work that we've done together on water, and we're going to move forward in a really holistic way that solves our water issues for our food sustainability, for our industries, for our drinking water, for our farms, for the long term. So those are the things that I want you to be able to talk about throughout the year so we can get to this point next year. And I'll just leave it at that. What Adrian said really speaks to me as well. We have to do this together. We can be nimble, we can move fast, but we are here because of you. So we need your voices, we need to be at the table together, and we need to work forward to solve these solutions. I think these next 4 years are going to be tough. That is all the more reason why we need to work together. Trump is not going to get our water, so let's work on that. Thank you.
Minister Brar.
So what I'm proud of, I was able to give the new permit on second day of my job. That's the shortest time to give a permit to a mine in the global community. Anyway, on the serious note, I just want to say thank you to the organizers of the Natural Resources Forum to bring us together. This is a great place to come together, to have discussion, to meet stakeholders, and talk to each other, and moving forward and find ways to unlock the BC natural resources in a most responsible way to create good jobs for the people of British Columbia and answer to a lot of other questions. I learned a lot from here. I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of stakeholders. This was a great opportunity to learn their perspective to move forward on a lot of issues. And so I really appreciate the organizers to bring us together for this one. I just want to say to you on a mining sector, I was able to meet a lot of stakeholders. I am fully committed. We are listening. We are fully committed to find ways to deal with the issue, whether it's the more efficiencies to bring in the permitting process, and whether it's to find better tools to address the reconciliation piece and all that. We will work with you. I am very excited to work with you. My doors are open. We are accessible. And we will work with you to unlock the potential in the mining sector to create best job, well-paying jobs for the people of British Columbia, and grow the economy, address the reconciliation issue, and sustain our environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Minister Gibson.
Well, for me, there's 4 parts to what I want to be delivering on, and none of it happens without working together. And as we face, as I mentioned, this challenge with tariffs, I think it really does give us an opportunity to come together. And it's created a moment where, as government, as industry, as municipal governments, as First Nations, we don't have the luxury of not engaging together to solve this problem. So it's actually a great opportunity for us to really come together and problem solve. And that's what my ministry is about, whether that's around jobs, innovation. We've got In BC here today. We work with Innovate BC as well as in my ministry to really bring in investment and help de-risk projects in our major projects fund. So it's a ministry where we're really at the Ministry of Problem Solving. I think it sounds to me like each of my colleagues is here saying, I'm here to problem solve with you too. So really that is what we're here for. And to ensure that we're unlocking that economic development together and doing it right now, fast. And that announcement that the Premier made around transmission lines, for example, if we can find ways, industrial land, there's many opportunities for us to talk together about how we can help you and work together to unlock economic development and create quality jobs across BC, including in our rural and resource-dependent communities, and especially in those areas. Thank you.
Right, Minister Boyle.
Thanks, and I'll build on that to say one of the things I'm really excited about is First Nations-led economic development, working with nations, working with the Leadership Council to build capacity and create more opportunities in terms of First Nations economic development. And a huge part of our work is continuing to show that partnerships with First Nations bring strength to our economy, bring stability to projects. There's no denying that land-based resource development in British Columbia requires engagement and participation with First Nations, and that's a huge asset. Working together with First Nations on equity investments, on revenue sharing, on long-term reconciliation agreements brings stability to projects. It also brings a wealth of important knowledge and skill to the work that we have. So my ministry is working both behind the scenes and in public with industry and with First Nations to create stability and economic opportunities, good jobs, and to support self-determination for First Nations. The work of coming to partnership and agreement is important, and the work of good, smooth implementation of those agreements is incredibly important too. And so I look forward to being back next year to hear and share success stories on all of those fronts. There are people who will argue that we should go back to long, costly fights in the courts, but we know that partnerships are the way that we move this work forward, and that will continue to be the commitment. I didn't know we were going to have a informal debate about whose ministry was the best, but I'm just going to say that the work that we're doing in partnership on economic development is cross-government. It's everyone's ministry job, and so I think that's we're not saying trump card anymore. What's the new term?
Mic drop?
Yeah, that's the work that I'm excited to do with my colleagues here and with all of you.
Great. Thank you, Minister Boyle. Minister Davidson.
Thank you, and thank you for not making me go after Minister Dix, because it's very daunting to have, he's urgency and strong, so thank you for that. I'd just like to say thank you to the organizers. I'd also like to say thank you to the sponsors of this forum. It's been great this week to meet with everyone that I had a chance to meet with, and I look forward to building relationships and also meeting more of you throughout the work that we're doing here. I would say the accomplishment for this year, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing the 5-year review of the Environmental Assessment Act, and that really is an opportunity to gain feedback from people who are working within that process. And what we're looking at is we know that it has to evolve and it has to be responsive. So we're really going to be doing a lot of feedback on what's working and what's not, and it will be my role and my job to take that feedback and to look at where we can streamline, where we can hear the voices and listen to the people that have been going through the environmental assessment process. We have about 20 large projects right now in the process, and so we're hoping that through a lot of the experience that we've had in the past, but also looking to the future, what are the good ideas that are going to come through that feedback, and how can we implement them? I'd like to just say one last thing. I do have the environmental assessment process in my ministry. I also have the conservation services and BC Parks. I don't know if anyone can argue. By the way, camping reservations are now open for BC Parks this week. So I think mine might, have a little leg up this week. So thank you.
All right, and Minister Dix.
Well, just on behalf of my colleagues, I want to thank all of you. I think the core of this, and I want to thank you for your generosity in sharing your views with us over the last number of days in public session and maybe more importantly in private session. I am inspired sometimes when you're in the midst of a fundamental historic change, you don't recognize it's happening. One of the exceptional things about the projects that we announced, and this isn't just the government, this is great companies such as Interjects. We heard from Tourmaline, we've heard from Enbridge, we've heard from other companies that I've met with this week and in recent times, who are transforming the nature of the economy in their partnerships with First Nations. So let's say a year from now that we've made progress on that. Not just what's possible or talking about the value, but project after project after project that reflects that value, that companies are leading, the private sector is leading as well as the government, of changing the dynamic, of making economic reconciliation a force in First Nations community and a force in all communities. Now, we have projects in BC, we talk about these wind projects, and they're not the primary thing that we've talked about here this week, but all of them are majority owned, not just by First Nations, but by local communities. This is local development. It is the largest call for power we've ever seen. It's power as big as Site C in terms of energy. It's thousands of jobs, and its enduring impact on communities is shown by this. And it's not just BC Hydro, it's the companies I've mentioned and dozens of more. So let it not be my accomplishment, because all the accomplishments are our accomplishments. But let's come back here next year with progress on project after project after project, fewer words, more actions, and more achievement, because we require that in difficult times. This moment challenges all of us, but I believe we're doing something together that will be remarkable, that people will look back on this decade in terms of natural resources in British Columbia like we've looked back on the 1960s in energy and other times. We can do this together, not by speeches, although I like speeches, but by action. So that's what I want to be able to report on next year.
Great. All right, well, that ends our part of this program. There's one more part, and we'll turn the microphone back to the incomparable Kevin Brown.
Let's hear it for Team Awesome, the awesome panel, our fabulous moderator. And for the record, Minister Neill, awesome, and Minister Dix, fewer words, not for the MCs, just the minute. They want to come back next year and tell you about all the action. Please welcome to our podium Kimberly Iverson, Manager, Government and Regulatory Affairs for ConocoPhillips, to officially thank our panel. Kimberly.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. What a great conversation to start off today. It's a pleasure to be here today on the traditional territory of the Lheidli Nation and at the BC Natural Resources Forum as we explore and celebrate the interconnectedness of BC's natural resources sector and how they provide purpose, partnerships, and prosperity for British Columbia and beyond. ConocoPhillips is a proud sponsor of the forum. We too are committed to developing opportunities and finding innovative solutions for British Columbia's natural resources sectors, as well as helping to facilitate shared prosperity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to thank our distinguished speakers this morning who provided such valuable insights into the critical role that government plays in stewarding responsible natural resource development alongside resource developers, Indigenous, and local community members for the benefit of everyone in British Columbia. Please join me in a sincere thank you to our speakers, the Honourable Ministers, Minister Dix, Minister Davidson, Minister Boyle, Minister Gibson, Minister Brar, and Minister Neill.